social change takes time. There is change, but you might not see it today, tomorrow.
Your business model doesn't index 10x growth. There's a constant pressure to go deep and go big at the same time. That's affected nonprofits as well.
I want to say, which is maybe controversial, is not all organizations need to survive. It's fine to close your not-for-profit.
Just crushed a few dreams there.
I could grow a business. I could run a taxi company. Will I get VC funding? No.
Yeah.
Will I be profitable? Yes. Funders tell you what to do. Because you need funding, you lose focus. Don't end up doing more damage. If the evidence says otherwise, be willing to say it doesn't work. If you want to be scaling and you can't replicate it, it's fine. That level of maturity, I don't think I've seen in the social sector anywhere.
Two founders walk into with Satish Manchikanti and Ajit Sivram. Execution is not a hustle. When you grow people, you grow everything. Two founders walk into.
Hi Amit, you've been building organizations for 15 years now, and now as part of Dovetail, really funding a lot of organizations, not just in India, but globally. What is it that keeps you up at night? What is it that excites you about where India's at and where we're heading?
To be honest, I sleep really well.
Tell me more about that, please.
Help us all.
I can have a separate podcast on man. Yeah, no, so I think where we are, what excites me, not worries me, I believe the younger generation. I think there's clearly a desire to make a difference.
Yeah.
And my hypothesis is they are going to change the world. What we wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
And it comes from multiple places, but you can see that. And it's not just about working in the sector, or there's a genuine desire to do good. And you can see that coming through very clearly. I think that's what gives me hope more than anything else.
I love what you shared because we work with young people and we experience that day in and day out. They feel very empowered compared to our generation where we were stuck with roti, kapda, makan. They feel like they have that margin to go out and make a difference. The India's growth story is very real, and we are racing towards being the third largest economy. But my question is this: are we disillusioning the young people, saying, hey, with this growth story, you can be the change, you can bring others along? Is that actually possible? How do you see that?
So the growth story is definitely there, right? And the way I think about it is most of us are better off than our parents, which has helped the young people to have much more secure lives. Simple example, I'm pretty sure like all of us bought our first mobile phone with our own money. I don't think anybody in the younger generation did that.
That's true.
And I think that enables them to be empowered, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think where I see is they are aware about the inequalities in the world. They know that it's not a perfect system, that there is so much that needs to be done. Just walk around. It could be waste. It could be like there are still people suffering all around us. And I think that's like, even though there is been amazing growth, there is so much more to be done.
100%.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very true. We live in an India of almost like two Indias or more than two Indias, right? There's the haves and then the have-nots. And now you're saying this India is definitely a lot more socially aware of what they'd like to fix about the world we live in. You work a lot in the philanthropy space, understand the philanthropy space quite deeply. That's a space for us. We're just journeying into understanding it. India is also creating a new billionaire every 4 days, which is just a crazy number if you think of it. Family offices are multiplying, and a lot of them also are socially minded, especially the younger generation of what we've seen, the second generation of philanthropy, and they really want to make a difference in the sector.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? Because India is almost not as mature in terms of philanthropy as the West or other countries. Where are you seeing India today? And from a global perspective also, where does that match up?
Sure. So if I take the Asian context, I think we are much more mature compared to countries in Southeast Asia from a philanthropic point of view. Traditionally, if you look at it, and there's enough studies that Indians have a willingness to give.
Yeah.
Very true.
Be it at an individual level, be it at as you grow bigger and financially better off. Most of the giving has always been kept very low-key. Low-key could be you're helping somebody that you know.
Yeah.
It's within your circle. There's significant giving to religious bodies.
Huge.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it. It's not in the news and things like that.
Yeah.
I think that's where I see evolution of philanthropy, right? From moving to giving to people, to religious, to now seeing, okay, how can my money or financial wealth be transformative? We're still far away from being strategic about it. But the fact that there is that willingness to think about sectors that your business is not aligned to, but that you're passionate about it, right? I think that's the evolution that I'm seeing. I'm also seeing large family businesses, second generation, third generation, setting up family offices just to do philanthropic work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right, which is phenomenal. And these are very traditional businesses that none of us have ever heard of, but there are multiple crore businesses. Families are setting up family offices. It's amazing to see young people at an individual level. When we talk about philanthropy, we're always talking about the big money.
Yeah.
But you look at your Keto, your crowdsourcing platform, they're doing really well.
Yeah.
It's that willingness to give at an individual level, that somewhere you believe you're better off, therefore let me do something good. So
you've been obviously part of global philanthropy for a long time, and so when you look at the ecosystem and compare it with India, where it's still at a very early stage, a lot of new money, and there's this family offices and foundations figuring out how to strategically invest. If you had to give a couple of insights saying, comparing this with this, saying, hey, maybe these are a couple of things we can do better, what would those be?
I think it starts with just the realization, as any philanthropic foundation, that social change takes time.
Yeah.
Because on your full-time job, you're doing business. And in a business, you're seeing immediate results.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Be it sales, be it your books.
Yeah.
And you can't use the same mentality in the social sector.
Yeah.
Very true.
That's the start, right? Which even in the US or Europe, it took time. It's an evolution. It will happen in India as well. When we have conversations, especially with HNIs, there is that understanding. Earlier it was, okay, what can you achieve? What are your targets?
Yeah.
To, okay, let's think about 5 years from now.
Yeah.
That's for me, that maturity. That's where we still have a long way to go. 2 is thinking more strategic. What's happened in philanthropy for a long time is one day you're supporting arts. Next day you're like, oh, agriculture looks interesting.
Yeah.
Now give money to agriculture. Tomorrow it's something else, right? That doesn't work.
Absolutely.
Long-term games with long-term.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So being much more strategic about your giving, thinking about it long-term. The third is just your money is not going to change the world.
Yeah.
You have to be
love
open to
that.
collaboration amongst funders.
Nice.
Absolutely.
That, for me, within the Indian philanthropic space is very
Very
low.
nascent.
Very
Interesting.
I love
So
that notice.
I would say these are 3 sort of areas that we can still go a long way at.
And I think if we're able to make those changes, it'll have fundamentally impact on the larger social ecosystem, right? Just running a nonprofit for us, sometimes it's not about what change, it's just how do we survive the next year. So when you're in survival mode as a nonprofit founder, you're not even thinking of, hey, how do I build the best program or sort it out, right? You're just saying, hey, how do we pay salaries next year? So even a funder commits to 3 years, then your mind is just like, hey, build the best program possible and deal with the need, right? When you think of funders and nonprofits working together, there is almost, I would like to say a seesaw, but it's almost just a seesaw, right? There's this power imbalance that exists within the sector. And this is not just for philanthropy, it's in CSR and HNIs also. How do you see it being on both sides? I think you've got this unique perspective, right? You've been on both sides. And what's the cost of that imbalance also that you're seeing in the sector?
Let's start by admitting there is a power imbalance. Let's put it out there.
Yeah.
Right? Let's not hide it. It is there. Everybody knows about it. People might not talk about it. And the reason I'm putting it out, there is a need of being aware of it first, be it on the funder side, be it on the implementing side. How do you balance any kind of power imbalance? It's through trust and transparency
Yeah.
on both sides.
Love
Funders being clear about what do we fund, how we fund,
Yeah.
and why we fund.
Yeah.
Do we do unrestricted or restricted? Why do we do restricted? Fine.
Yeah.
Is it short term, long term? Right? And what is, as a funder, my expectation? On the other side is the implementer side, right? Being clear about what is my program? What is my output? What is my outcome? What can be reasonably achieved? When it's not achieved, being honest about it, putting your hand up, right? Everybody is scared. If I make a mistake, if I don't achieve my goal, I won't get funding. But being honest about it, and really good organizations do that. You don't need to make it public. Just have conversations with your funders. There's been examples of organizations where fraud was detected.
Wow.
And being honest about it. Okay,
Yeah.
it happened. This was the consequences.
Yeah.
This is the action we took. That gives funders high level of confidence in you all of a sudden.
Very true.
I haven't seen it in the Indian context yet. And that's because the balance is so high, right?
Sure.
On both sides.
Yeah.
For me, trust. And trust begins on both sides. It's not, funders will say, we want to see honesty on the implementer side. No, it's not, right? It needs to be a two-way thing. And that's the way we can balance the imbalance.
Love that.
Nice.
Yes. Trust is such a critical one, right? You talked about growth. Now, we live in a startup world. It's impacted all of us. Now, we are at a stage where if your business model doesn't index 10x growth,
Yeah.
then people lose interest very fast.
Yep.
And that's affected nonprofits as well, right? There's a constant pressure to go deep and go big at the same time.
Yep.
Then how do you see that kind of impacting the work? Is it a good thing or a bad thing, or it could be both? How do you see that?
So the way to look at it, and to draw similarities between the startup world, or let's call it the for-profit world and the not-for-profit world. Not every startup is scalable.
Sure.
If I'm running a grocery store or I want to start a grocery store, I'm not going to acquire a VC fund.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense. Okay, I build a cash flow. I'll go to my bank. That's my funder. Get a loan, overdraft, whatever. That's how I need my capital account.
Yeah.
To start off, I go to friends and family, right? Now, similarly in the not-for-profit space, really understanding what you want to do with your not-for-profit. For me, the scale question comes from ambition as a founder. It's the same in the startup space, right? Do I really want to build an Uber or a Flipkart?
Yeah.
If you talk to every startup, they say, we want to.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
But honestly, not everybody is going to build. And if you look at what really employs people, it's small and medium industries. None of them are funded by VC, but they get funding because they build a cash flow. They go to a bank, or there are ways that they can get funding.
Yeah.
Same in the not-for-profit space. There are funders depending on what is your ambition. If you are an organization that is not going to scale, that's going to go deep, and you keep approaching me as Dovetail, as a scale funder, I'm just going to say no, because we're never going to fund you.
Sure.
There are other funders who would be interested in funding you. So really understanding who your funder is, starting with what is your ambition, right? Who the funder that you should be targeting is the critical. And it's the same in the startup world, right? That's the way to think about it. So it's not a question of scale or depth. It's, if I'm starting a not-for-profit, I'm doing it because I want to make a difference.
Yeah.
But what is my ambition? Based on my ambition, I have a plan. Based on that, you look at who should be your funder. That's the way to think about it. That would solve half the rejection. It'll save me time as well.
I love that. Yeah.
So you're saying it's more
Yeah.
funder org fit in some sense, right? Depending on the kind of org, the kind of space they're in their journey, who is the right funder for you?
But let's also be honest, right?
Yeah.
The number of funders, you can count in your hands. The number of organizations are hundreds, right?
Yeah.
It is cute.
Yeah.
Then it's a question of, okay, I've identified my typical funder. Like, I don't want to go scale. I want to work in 5 districts in Chhattisgarh just with tribals. I want to improve their lives.
Yeah.
That's not a scalable model. It goes deep.
Yeah.
Now, who are the funders that I should be targeting?
Yeah.
What is important to them from an output point of view, from an outcome point of view?
True.
Build that. Then you can easily attract those kind of funders.
That's the right fit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the way to think about it. Whereas what's happening right now is let's do everything.
Yeah.
Okay, Dovetail is a scale funder. Let me change my narrative to meet their requirements.
Sure.
And that doesn't work. And we see that in the for-profit world as well, right? I could grow a business. I could run a taxi company. I can have hundreds of... Will I get VC funding? No.
Yeah.
Will I be profitable? Yes.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. Love that. Just to give us some idea of what your life is like as a funder, like how many of these requests do you get a week or a month? Or
It's difficult to quantify, but as a funder, I try and respond to everyone who writes me at least. But
but it's in the 50s or hundreds or...
no, I'm not that popular. I hope not after this.
Don't worry about that.
I would say about 5 to 8 a week.
Hey, that's a fair bit.
Yeah. Link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you're trying to reply to each, that's a lot of work.
Yes. I think I've gotten good at it where I can read about an organization and
No, yes or
yes or no,
Okay.
right, very quickly. And
Nice.
I will not engage in an in-depth conversation why I'm saying no, but
Yeah.
at least you'll get answer from
Some clarity.
yeah, that
Yeah.
this is not for us. Scale is very clear, right? Scale is millions. It's the breadth of impact,
Yeah.
Sure.
right? Now, breadth can be defined differently. So, for example, an organization working in one state could be seen as scale.
Yeah.
Will I look at it as scale? No. My question is, how can you replicate? Because as a country, if this problem exists in 5 states, how can you take it to 5? So that's what I mean by scale.
Nice.
Yeah. So you talked about the founder's ambition and do they have the ambition to take it forward? When you look at the startup space, almost everybody has an ambition to scale, right? But there are also resources, channels. It's not just the VCs, right? The incubators to help them take that ambition and then
Translate that.
translate that into a model or strategy to take the journey.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in non-profit space where non-profits are able to get that support? Not just, hey, we will fund the scale, but hey, we'll help you think through how to scale.
Yeah.
So do you want to throw some light on that?
Sure. So it starts with ambition. From day one, somebody needs to have ambition in the not-for-profit space. The difference in the not-for-profit and the startup space is the startup space, you can have your curve very quickly.
Yeah.
In the not-for-profit, it's much more longer. But there are things that you need to do at that stage, which is building evidence. That's the critical piece, right? In the startup space, it's about customers.
Yeah.
Here, it's evidence of impact. Evidence of impact, and I'm clearly talking about outcomes. Whatever sector that you're working in, you will have to figure out how can you track outcomes.
Nice.
And you don't need to scale at that stage. You just keep showing. And then it's about figuring out a model where then you can scale.
Yeah.
And if you look at the most successful organizations, their curve is like that. It'll go first few years, it'll be like this. They figured out the model. They found out a model, it's replication.
Replicable, yeah.
And then ideally your unit cost, then it becomes like a business, right? Your unit cost comes down significantly.
Yeah.
As a funder, where we want to come in is when you're climbing. There are funders who come much more earlier, but a lot of it is experimenting at that stage. It's about figuring out, okay, what works, what doesn't work, right? And tweaking your model, which is fine. The funders who fund at that stage should be open to, and they generally are. There are very few funders at that stage. Again, being very straightforward.
And there's again, when you look at a startup world, I can get a few $1 million with one paper, with nothing. Whereas in a non-profit world, you're saying, hey, we need to do the work, get the evidence before you can. And I guess that's the gap we got to
Absolutely, In the not-for-profit space, the bigger problem is when you're at that stage, you will meet a funder who would be like, oh, you're in education, you're in schools. Why don't you do WASH as well?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'll get the funding, let me do this.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest challenge that I feel from a scale point of view, right? Funders tell you what to do. And because you need funding, you lose focus. Okay, I have access to the schools, therefore I can unlock this money, so let me do it. Before you know it, you're doing teacher training, you're doing WASH.
There's a girl child in there somewhere.
Exactly, right? Because of the funding availability, right? The really good scale organization focus. This is what we want to do. Let's figure out how we'll do it. And they stick to that. The other thing that I want to say, which is maybe controversial, is not all organizations need to survive. Just like in the startup space, at some stage it dies.
Yeah.
It's fine to close your not-for-profit.
Just crushed a few dreams there.
For me, it is don't end up doing more damage. If the evidence says otherwise, be willing to say it doesn't work. If you want to be scaling and you can't replicate it, it's fine. That level of maturity, I don't think I've seen in the social sector anywhere. Because it is crushing dreams, right? And as social entrepreneurs, you're passionate. You want to make a difference.
I love that, because I think a lot of time the wrestle is you feel it's noble to keep going, especially if it's for a cause, right? So
and your sunk cost fallacy also. We've built this for the last 10 years. Now what? How do we keep that?
I feel like you're letting the beneficiaries down, right? But you're letting them down anyway. Right?
You don't have the right impact, right?
So there is wisdom there.
And we've seen also programs where they've lived their life almost and they've done what they wanted to achieve and say it's okay to now say, okay, it's time to wind down. What was the reality then is not the reality today. And so we've had that. We've also grown a couple of programs to, hey, we're done. Now let's move on to something.
And there are programs we started and figured out it doesn't work.
Within a year or
crush those dreams, right?
No, but that willingness to admit it is maturity. For me, as a funder, an implementing organization comes and says that. I think that shows high level of maturity.
Now, especially with, I feel like the post-2020 nonprofits, they do tend to be more entrepreneurial. They're almost like social entrepreneurial startups, right? So talking about today's day and age, I think you can't have a podcast without saying the words AI. And especially in our space, every major technology shift has, over the last 20, 30 years, come so late to the least of these, right? To the sort of, in some sense, the parts of India which need it the most, which it would benefit and really move the needle forward.
Yeah.
There's already such a scramble. Every day there's a new something happening in the AI space.
Yeah.
Where do you see AI structurally making a difference within where India is today?
With AI, there's so much happening, it's difficult to predict. I don't think people understand how the marginalized are potentially going to use AI because they don't use AI.
Yeah.
One part is, how do you make it accessible? And to use the mobile phone example, right? There was a time where incoming calls were charged 17
$60 was nuts. Yeah.
till Jio came and changed the game and everybody had a mobile phone. And the way people use mobile phones is very different from how the middle class used it. And then use cases started building up. Like the fisherman using it to sell his products, things like that. So I think the big question is, can companies make it affordable and accessible so that we start seeing what they can use? Okay, so that's from a use case point of view. Then comes from the implementing organization, right? How do you use AI? There's a lot of chatbots. There's no shortage of AI chatbots. I'm yet to see a good chatbot, be it Indigo, be it any of these chatbots that try to use. And these are big companies, right? For me, there is an opportunity to use AI to develop products where AI becomes the fundamental product. If I can use an example of an organization that we fund is Adalat AI, where they're using AI for translation and transcription service in courtrooms.
Wow.
Something that somebody had to sit and type was just writing down gets clear efficiencies.
Wow.
Nice.
That's where I see potential for impact for AI. Like, how can we use AI to reduce inefficiency? And inefficiencies exist across
The word,
That's where I would, as a funder, look at opportunities to invest in instead of a chat.
Very nice. We talked about India's growth story. We talked about AI, two shining things. And there is a lot of excitement to solve interesting problems in India. And you see a lot of young people are actually, as you mentioned, are excited about solving these problems. Now, we have worked with thousands of young people and have worked with them at a full time, at a range of they working full time. But one trend we have seen is, they have a lot of ambition. They're excited about solving problems. But by the time they hit 26, 27, the reality hits and it's, I'm not too sure if I can have a long-term career in social sector. Right? India has not there yet, not at least for the masses. Right? But you are someone who stayed and built a career in it. So for the young ones who are starting off, if you had to share some wisdom of, hey, if you're in for a long game, how do you build that career? What would be your advice? What would be your wisdom?
Sure. First of all, people think that working in the social sector is easier than the corporate sector.
I need a break. Let me join the social sector.
Like a lot of those applications.
Exactly. Right. It's not. It's a full-time job. It is.
It's more than a full-time job sometimes.
It is rewarding. Which is, but at the same time, the pay is horrible. Right.
It's not as rewarding.
You can't compare it. I think it starts with, as a human being, just being self-aware. Like, what drives you? Is financial reward a key driver? The social sector might not be your thing. Donate. If many donate, do good like that, right? If you want a balance between financial stability as well as rewarding, that's the first question that you need to answer. Then my next advice would be to figure out, and this takes time, right? What really drives you? What gets you excited? Do you like working in the environment space, being outdoor? Start your career within a wildlife organization. There are enough opportunities, right? Then figure out from a skill point of view what you're good at. Not everybody is creative, not everybody is analytical. But again, this comes from a little bit of testing it out. Like going out there, do a role, figure it out. You'll soon realize whether you're good or bad. That's the honest truth, right? If you can figure that out, like, what are you good at? Are you creative? Are you analytical? Like, all of us, I believe, have some ability, no matter what. And if you can combine it with areas that you're interested in, you can build a fantastic career.
Nice.
And then you can figure out, how do I keep growing within the space? That would be my advice. So starting with being aware, where is financial reward really important? Like,
is there a need also for it?
Absolutely. Being able to accept that Your peers who graduate with you in college, who might go to a KPMG or an investment bank, is going to go make much more than you,
Yeah.
but you would sleep better. No, just kidding. No, you'll sleep better. But being aware of that is the first question, right? Then the other piece of advice is there is burnout in the sector.
Interesting. Yeah.
You get jaded because you come in with so much passion and want to change the world, and you don't see the change you want to see happening, which is where that 27, 28, you're like, I'm done.
Let me just go
I might as well go back to the corporate sector and get into office politics.
Yeah.
But again, social change takes time. There is change, but you might not see it today, tomorrow.
Yeah.
But over time, if you can see it, you can get motivated. And fundamentally understand there are certain things you can control as a human being. You cannot end inefficiencies in garbage collection.
Yeah.
But if you start segregating your waste
You can,
and telling 5 other people to segregate waste is a start. So with what can you do within your sort of control, and being aware of that makes a big difference in the social sector.
The interesting, you talked about the whole money aspect, just in terms of the careers in non-profit. When you think just from a funder's perspective, I understand that we will never be able to match what you're going to make in working in a corporate. And I think people understand that by and large, right? But I think things definitely have improved from where we started in the non-profit space. Like, it was unthinkable to say, hey, I actually can make a living at least, not compare myself to someone else who's working in the corporate world. So I think getting to a place where I can have a career. But when you look at a proposal, when you look at a budget, how does that look like? And is that changing? You're very strict saying, okay, I do not want money to go towards a salary, right? I only want the money to go towards the book.
Yeah.
How is that shaping? How is that thinking? Is that changing when it comes to funders?
Yeah. So let me talk from a Dovetail perspective. We do unrestricted funding.
Nice.
Our philosophy is an organization knows best how to use the funding.
Amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think all funders should do unrestricted funding. From an organizational point of view, you can never afford to pay salaries of corporate.
Yeah.
For me, the opportunity is to give fair wages, like industry standard. And then is how can you help an individual to grow?
Nice.
Which is where I think a lot of organizations fail. They see it as a role. Let's hire for the role. It's not about building for the future.
Nice.
Not everybody needs to be in an organization for 10 years.
Love that. Yeah.
The way I would want founders to think about it is you bring in somebody, you should have an exit plan for them. Because if somebody is staying in a communication role for 10 years, I would see it as a problem.
Yeah.
Is how do you then enable that person and have conversation with that person that these are potential roles you should be applying for in 3 or 4 years from now. Right. That's how you, for me, like mitigate for the salary mismatch is helping people build careers. And it's tough to do, right?
Yeah.
Like that means as an organization, you need to build a culture around enabling people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough because we still see job descriptions.
I think you talked a bit about burnout, right? And just the difficulty of it's almost like a weight, like an emotional weight also working in the sector.
Yeah.
There is usual work stress, deadlines, all of that. When you've done this now, a decade now, both sides of the sector, what are things that have kept you centered? Saying, hey, I want to keep doing what I'm doing because I'm sure it's taken a toll on you, family, like health, and what's kept you in the game?
I think I've been lucky to realize quite early on what drives me. I like working with entrepreneurs, especially like at a stage that Dovetail in. Basically become a thought partner for an organization.
Nice.
Really drives me. The second is being out in the field. See impact. My job 80% of the time is desk. I'm reading stuff you guys sent me. And for me personally, when I go to the field, interact with the people that are getting impacted, really drives me, right? That's when I see the impact of my work. And because I fund an organization and because of that, somebody's life has changed. For me, these are the two things that have really kept me going.
Say 10 years from now, say the whole non-profit sector got one thing, how would you visualize the change to be meaningful?
Change to be meaningful. Oh, that's a tough one. So much that needs to be done in this country, right? I would say it goes back to some of the things that I've already spoken about. On the funding side, unrestricted funding. We should, from a philanthropic space, if can be done, the more unrestricted funding, the better. On the other side is higher level of transparency and communication. Being honest about your impact, right? And being able to communicate that from an outcome perspective. Like doing evaluation studies, show it. And if it doesn't work, then being able to tweak your program, right? Instead of hiding it. If we can make those two changes in the way the entire not-for-profit world works, we would see significant impact in 10 years. Any sector.
I love that. Yeah.
Love it. Hey, just want to say thank you so much. I think from our
Thank you for having me here.
I think from our first conversation, one of the things that really struck me about you, and I think I emailed you after also about it, was like speaking to you felt like speaking to another human, not just a funder, right? Like, yeah, that power.
Funders are humans as
A lot of times they tend to be very guarded. You were very honest and real with us, which felt really, it was very refreshing. Just to say, hey, Ajit, these are the 3 things. You laid it out for us very clearly. And I think that immediately, I was like, I'd love to have another conversation with Amit. We had to organize a podcast for that, but I'm glad we did. But I think grateful for that and very grateful for the work you do, right? I think sometimes the NGOs look at funders and go, they have an easy life, but I think the intention and the work ethic you all have is incredible. So thank you so much. Loved having you here and look forward to keep chatting.
Thank you.
Thank you.